Like, I'm the guy who can't leave the house without spending 20 minutes looking for his keys first, but here I am making a video for you about the bulletproof system that I use to capture and recall information on demand. And it might not work for remembering where I put my keys, but when it comes to running my companies, it is world freaking class. I'm gonna break down exactly how I do it for you in this video. There's two halves to the system here, capturing information and recalling it, and we're gonna start with the information capture. When it comes to capturing information, Notion is at the center of everything. It's the hub of the system and the place where all the information that I capture ends up living. Now, there's two main ways that information gets into Notion. Some of it's automated through a tool called Readwise, which I'll get to in a minute, and some of it's just entered manually by me as I'm doing my work. So when I talk about manually entering things into Notion, there's really three types of information that I'll put in myself. The first one is tasks, right? So as I'm going through my daily rhythms, just running the companies, there's always stuff that pops up that I know that I need to work on. For me, I usually break my tasks down into three main categories, and I make a little board for each of them here in the Notion hub. All right, the first one is creative work. And if you've watched any of my content on time blocking, you know that I personally prefer to do my creative work in the mornings. And so I'll put the creative work up here in its own section. And I know that when I'm setting up my morning time, I need to pluck tasks out of that. Same thing for admin work, right? So there's like little stuff that doesn't require too much brain power. I prefer that in the afternoon. So I put that in a separate list. They're usually tasks that take a shorter amount of time than I can knock out if I'm already, a little tired or low on energy. And I'll do those in the afternoon time. All right, so I got creative work, I got admin work. And the third one is just like calls, meetings, conversations, stuff that I have to do when I talk to people. And so I'll drop that down here in this third lane. And then I know that as I'm having meetings with people, I just want to cruise through that lane and make sure I pick up anything that's in there. So those are the three types of tasks. The other thing that I'll do specifically for the people that work in my company is, you can see them on the screen here, I actually have a list for each person. So I know that if I've got a call with Coop, my head of media, coming up, for instance, I can open this up and I keep two categories in every list, right? The first one is feedback. So if there's something that's not a huge deal where I need to interrupt someone's day to give them feedback on it, but I know that the next time we talk, I want to discuss it, I'll just put a link to it right here in my feedback list and I'll have it saved for later. The second is coaching topics. If you've watched anything I've ever put out on leadership and management, you know that I'm a big proponent that leaders have to be coaches. You got to coach your team members to success. And it's tough to do that if you're not capturing the topics that you want to train them on, right? So anything that I want to coach Cooper up on, I'll drop down in this coaching list. And then when we have a one-on-one, I'll pluck it out of the list and use that to feed the discussion. All right, so we covered tasks, we covered people notes, and then I just have an area for tracking my major projects. Obviously I stripped this out because I want to put all my projects on the internet, right? But I'll keep projects here with just a quick status and the next thing that I have to do. And then just some random notes, right? If I'm talking to someone and I want to jot down a few ideas, I'll drop it in here. But the point is this, I can come into Matt's hub on Notion, and I know that if it's a task that I've written down, if it's something I need to talk to any of my team members about, if it's a random note from any meeting I've ever sat in, or if it's a project that I need to make sure I'm keeping track of, it all lives in one place, and this is the only place that it lives. I don't keep any other to-do lists, I don't use Apple Notes, I don't use text files. Everything goes in the hub, everything goes in Notion, every single time. Now we're gonna get to the fun part, the nerdy part, the way that I automate everything else. Right? There's no way to automate the tasks that have to come out of your brain. But when it comes to collecting static information, things like the things that I highlight on my Kindle, or tweets that I want to save, or interesting articles that I read, I use a ton of automation to make it as easy as possible to build a searchable database of all that stuff. And I'll show you exactly how it works. So I use this tool called Readwise, which is killer. And let's talk about this in the context of Kindle highlights, for instance. You can see on the screen that I'm sharing right here, a list of every single book that I've ever read on my Kindle that I've ever taken a highlight on, right? And I'll just pluck one, Thinking in Systems. So if I open this book up, here's a list of every single highlight, anything that I thought was interesting about this book, right? And it's all saved, it's all searchable. I can search by the author, but most importantly, I can search by the topic, right? So if I wanted to do a search, for instance, let's say product management, right? So I can see I've got a tweet that I saved here about product management. I've got some quotes from Wes Bush's book, Product-Led Growth. Awesome book, by the way. Wes is a friend, super good. tweets from Toby Rogers from the Startup Archive. I got some internal stuff, obviously. You get the idea, right? So I can go down here and anything that I've ever retained that contains the words product management, I can quickly search it, I can quickly pull it out, I can filter those search results down by like books or tweets or what page they're on and find exactly what I'm looking for. It is an absolute superpower. The same thing works for like articles and tweets. Tweets is a big one, right? So I mean, it'll basically aggregate these by person. So like if I want to look at anything I've looked at from Alex Hormozi, for instance, I've just got a list of all the tweets that I've saved from him and so on and so forth. For anyone that I've saved, any tweet, you just like bookmark and it gets synced over automatically. So I'll take 2 seconds to show you how this actually works on the back end. It's super simple. The key to everything, like I mentioned before, is this tool called Readwise. I can get you a 2-month free trial. You just go to mattverlack.com/Readwise and you can sign up. It's like $8 a month, and honestly, it's the best $8 a month I've ever spent. And all you do is basically connect the things you want to import and connect the things you want to export. So I'll show you mine. Things that I import. You can see that my Kindle is synced, Instapaper, which is like an article capturing Chrome plugin, Twitter, those are like the 3 big ones that I use. And then when we want to go to export, I've tried all sorts of different note-taking apps, which is why I've got so many synced, but you can see Notion is right here. And if you go into Notion, you'll see it exports automatically. It includes the highlight locations, so I can actually find the specific location in the Kindle book. For instance, you can have the layout. It just like gives you a little bit of options. But the TLDR here is that you plug in all your sources, you set it up to export to Notion, you pick the page, and every day it's going to grab everything you've highlighted in Readwise and dump it all into Notion, perfectly formatted, perfectly searchable, and you never have to think about it. It's a great thing to just like have running in the background of your life, knowing that anytime you highlight something or anytime you bookmark something, it's going to be saved and you'll know exactly where to find it. And that's how I make sure that Notion ends up being the hub of the information capture system. So all this information capture stuff is well and good, but if you don't build some rhythms in your business and in your life to recall the information and use it to drive your daily actions, it's not actually going to do anything for you. There's 2 main strategies that I use to make sure I don't fall into that trap. The first one is called calendar allocations, and the second one is FYI Invites. So calendar allocations, here's what it means. I am a ruthless time blocker. What that means is that on my calendar, every day from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m., my goal is to make sure that there is 0 empty time on the calendar. Doesn't mean that I'm working productively for 16 hours a day. That's not what I do. I just want to spend my time on purpose, right? So I block out things like having lunch with my wife or going to the gym or hanging out with my kids. I just put it all in there so I can play defense and make sure that tasks and other people's to-do lists don't encroach on the important stuff. But one of the most important things that I do, again, I like to do creative work in the morning, is I time block with these big yellow freaking boxes every morning, whatever open space I have until about 12 or 1 o'clock, and I just call it heads down time, which doesn't actually do anything helpful, but it protects the time. And then I'll go into the Notion hub that I showed you earlier, and I'll go look at my creative tasks and I'll look at my projects, all the like cognitively intense things that I need to work on, and I'll grab them and I'll allocate them, meaning I'll delete the heads down block, which is essentially a placeholder, and I will put my tasks into my calendar. This is a big idea that a lot of people do. They fill up their calendars and then they have separate task lists and they wonder why they can never finish their to-do list. There's no extra time. It's only what you have on your calendar. So you need to take the things on your to-do list, estimate how long you need to work on them, and find a place to put them in the calendar. That is what I mean when I say calendar allocations. You got to move it from point A to point B. The calendar is what drives the way that you spend your time. I do the same thing for my admin tasks, do the same thing for my meetings, because I just want to live each day on purpose, and the way that I do that is by making sure that I am the one filling up my calendar. The second concept I mentioned called FYI Invites. The principle here is called packaging the details. I want every detail, every bit of context that I need preloaded into my calendar, so when I'm actually running my day, I can just open the calendar and I know that I most likely don't even have to check Notion because it's all sitting in the calendar ready to rock. But there's some context that I might not want the person I'm meeting with to be able to see. So I'm not going to add it to the shared calendar invite because it might look a little weird. So what I do is I create an adjacent calendar invite. I title it FYI. I'm the only person invited to it. And in the description of that extra calendar invite, I will put all of the context that I want to make sure that I comprehend and that I can pull up very, very quickly. And then I just drive the day using the calendar, go from call to call to call in the afternoon. And I have FYI invites next to every call. And in the description, I have all the stuff that I needed to talk about, needed to address, needed to discuss. It's all sitting right there ready to go. And I know that my calendar for the day is the single source of truth. The key to making all this work is doing it regularly. Every single workday, I will review the day that I'm starting and then the following 3 work days. I'll look at every meeting, every heads down slot. I'll try to make sure that my day is completely filled up with meaningful work. And I just compare that to the hub where I have all my tasks stored. And I feel free to cancel stuff. I might cancel a couple of meetings if I don't have enough time to hit a deadline, or I might deprioritize a project and move something else on. The point here is that you're spending your time on purpose, and it's not gonna happen unless you review your list and your calendar every single workday. Now look, if you wanna fully implement this system, you're gonna need 2 things. I got them both for you. The first, like I mentioned earlier, is a Readwise subscription. I can get you an extended trial. Just go to mattverlack.com/readwise and it'll forward you to the right page and you can get the trial. But there's also the Notion template, the hub that I showed you earlier. I built out a shareable version for this in a template. You can just grab it and drop it into your Notion account. To get it, I need you to go to my Instagram. Go to Instagram, it's Matt Verlack. Just follow me, DM me the word Notion. I'll send it over to you. I would love for you to have it because it's really freaking efficient. Don't be afraid to go get nerdy on this stuff, guys, because I'll tell you what, nerds run companies that make money. I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.